I gotta get something off my chest. In this, I voted a couple of weeks back, and some of you might be a bit disappointed to say that I voted for Biden. When I say I voted for Biden, and to be honest, I kind of am, but also I do have my reasons, and I will list them. Um, Not necessarily in like numerical order, but just kind of one after the other when it comes to me. So the first one is obviously, and again, I'm gonna have disagreements with this, with what I'm gonna say, but I'm gonna say them anyway. I feel like Biden is just better when it comes to handling the coronavirus pandemic because right now things are really not good. Like they're just not good with the pandemic right now. We are closing in on 9 million cases with a little over 230,000 deaths, which is, and we basically account for a quarter of the cases and deaths in the entire world. Okay, so people saying that Trump is doing a good job with this thing have their heads up their asses, they're fucked in the head because that is simply not true. And I just think that, there are people who are potential, I guess, picks for Biden's cabinet who can institute like, a mask mandate as well as like he would set a good example, I guess, for people and say, look, you got to do this. If we want to be serious about controlling this virus, you got to do this. You got to distance. You got to wear the mask. You got to, try to, all this other stuff. So I trust him more with that. He has actually a tax plan that is actually, I think, is quite good. So I think he said he wants to tax, his policy states he wants to tax billionaires, corporations mainly, up to about 30%, which I think is awesome. Again, I would go higher, but beggars can't be choosers, so I'll take the 30%. So he's better on that, and the deregulations of environmental standards and regulations. Trump gutted so many of them, and what they do and what would happen as a result is there would be places in the U.S. where this drinking water can be contaminated with, all sorts of like just bullshit that you don't want. Anything from lead to maybe barium or, deposits of coal. There's so many things that that water can be contaminated with because coal companies and other like, corporations, they can easily pollute waterways with whatever the hell they damn well please. So I trust him more with the environment and climate change. Obviously, Trump just dismisses the entire threat, and I honestly don't think Biden will. Again, he'll have people in his administration who I hope will smack some fucking sense into him if he, maybe doesn't take the threat as seriously as he should. And I honestly just feel like, he can take the direction into kind of a slightly, you can take the country into a slightly better direction. I mean, things I think will improve very, very slightly. And this is why Biden is certainly not the end-all be-all solution that I want. It would have been better if Bernie was up against Trump rather than Biden because he has a way better chance of winning the election. Because right now things unfortunately are kind of tightening up, so that makes me a little bit worried. I'll say, but again, beggars can't be choosers, and I have to settle with what's been given. And I made the same decision in the governor election in my state of Illinois. In the primary, I voted for Daniel Biss because he was the least corrupted, I think, out of all the other candidates, especially J.B. Pritzker. So when I voted for Daniel Biss and I watched the results and I saw J.B. Pritzker was leading and won, I was very disappointed. But when it came to vote for, the governor, there was the then incumbent Bruce Rauner, and there was Pritzker. So I'm like, you know what? I gotta put my differences aside and vote Pritzker, because shit really wasn't getting done down in Springfield, and I needed to give Pritzker a chance. And I'm honestly quite pleased with some of the things he's done. Like, he's legalized marijuana. He's done his best with containing the spread of coronavirus. There's also a lot of people who are like, fuck Pritzker, they're shitting on him. And it's like, dude, would you rather have businesses open 100% capacity with no mask mandate, no distance mandate, and then hospitals being overwhelmed with patients, and then more and more deaths? Or would you rather have us avoid that kind of crisis? You gotta look at it that way. So, and I did the same thing with this election. I put my differences aside and I'm like, you know what? I can't vote third party, because that's what I did in the 2016 election. I'm like, I couldn't vote for Hillary, I couldn't vote for Trump. I just hated them so much. Both of them were just, I just couldn't. So, I voted for Jill Stein in that election, but now I see the danger that Trump has done. I see how many things he's fucked up. Assassinating Soleimani, who, by the way, was not a terrorist. That is fact. He was in the fight against ISIS. He was not a threat to the United States or anyone. And I just can't, let his recklessness go on. And he's still holding these massive rallies, which are considered super spreader events of COVID. Because yes, there are people wearing masks, but there's also a lot of people who just don't give a fuck, and they end up getting the virus, and things just don't go well. And the other day he held a rally, I think it was in Omaha, Nebraska, and it got really fucking cold there. And I forget if he didn't go there or something, or if he arrived late, but there were people that were at risk for hypothermia, and they had to be taken to the hospital there. So, this president's recklessness, I just can't handle it anymore. So I had to do what I can, and I had to vote for the other guy, because things are just not well. They're not well right now, especially in the United States. They're very, very bad. So, and not to mention, he's privatizing whatever he can. There was the Amy Coney Barrett being sworn in as Ruth Bader Ginsburg's replacement after her death. So with these kind of things, I just cannot vote third party. So I had to vote for Biden. And again, he's not the end-all be-all solution, not by a long shot. The end-all be-all solution for me would be if we had universal health care for everybody, free to the point of service. No one being screwed over because of pre-existing conditions or whatever. Infrastructure. There's cities where public transportation is not nearly good enough. Our airports are like the ones in Africa, and they're just really bad. And our infrastructure gets a grade of D+ according to the Society for Civil Engineers. I want us to get out of the wars. Again, Biden's not going to do that, but again, I mean, this is just a small step in the right direction. I also want a living wage tied to inflation, and legalize marijuana across the board nationally on a federal level. So that is my end-all be-all solution. And again, I mean, I just can't stand this president's recklessness anymore, and we just need a return to normalcy. We need a return to someone who will not acknowledge scientific fact, acknowledge reality, and will not be blinded by non-factual things. So that's why I voted Biden. So get mad at me, but that was my decision.